Beowulf, translated by Lesslie Hall. Book 33, Brave Though Aged, Reminiscences. The stranger began then to vomit forth fire, to burn the great manor. The blaze then glimmered for anguish to earlmen. Not anything living was the hateful air-goer willing to leave there. The war of the worm widely was noticed, the feud of the foemen afar and anear. How the enemy injured the earls of the Geatmen, harried with hatred. Back he hied to the treasure, to the well-hidden cavern ere the coming of daylight. He had circled with fire the folk of those regions, with brand and burning. In the barrow he trusted, in the wall and his war might, the weaning deceived him. Then straight was the horror to Beowulf published, early forsooth, that his own native homestead, the best of buildings, was burning and melting, gift seat of Geatmen. 'Twas a grief to the spirit of the good-mooded hero, the greatest of sorrows. The wise one weened then that wielding his kingdom 'gainst the ancient commandments, he had bitterly angered the Lord everlasting. With lorn meditations his bosom welled inward, as was nowise his custom. The fire-spewing dragon fully had wasted the fastness of warriors, the water land outward, the manor with fire. The folk-ruling hero, prince of the Weders, was planning to wreak him. The warmen's defender bade them to make him, earlman's atheling, an excellent war-shield wholly of iron. Fully he knew then that wood from the forest was helpless to aid him, shield against fire. The long-worthy ruler must live the last of his limited earth days, of life in the world and the worm along with him, though he long had been holding hoard wealth in plenty. Then the ring-prince disdained to seek with a war-band, with army extensive, the air-going ranger. He felt no fear of the foeman's assaults, and he counted for little the might of the dragon, his power and prowess. For previously dared he a heap of hostility, hazarded dangers, warthane, when Hrothgar's palace he cleansed, conquering combatant, clutched in the battle the kinsman of Grendel, of kindred detested. 'Twas of hand-fights not least where Hygelac was slaughtered, when the king of the Geatmen with clashings of battle, friend-lord of folks in Frisian dominions, offspring of Hrethel perished through sword-drink, with battle swords beaten. Thence Beowulf came then, on self-help relying, swam through the waters. He bare on his arm, lone-going, 30 outfits of armour when the ocean he mounted. The Hetwars by no means had need to be boastful of their fighting afoot, who forward to meet him carried their war-shields. Not many returned from the brave-mooded battle-night back to their homesteads. Ecgtheow's barn over the bite-courses swam then, lone-goer lorn to his landfolk returning, where higged to him tender treasure and kingdom, rings and dominion. Her son she not trusted to be able to keep the kingdom devised him 'gainst alien races on the death of King Hygelac. Yet the sad one succeeded not in persuading the atheling in any way ever to act as a suzerain to Heardred, or promise to govern the kingdom. Yet with friendly counsel in the folk he sustained him, gracious, with honour, till he grew to be older, wielded the Weders, wide-fleeing outlaws, Other's sons sought him o'er the waters. They had stirred a revolt 'gainst the helm of the Skilfings, the best of the sea kings, who in Swedish dominions distributed treasure, distinguished folk leader. 'Twas the end of his earth days. Injury fatal by swing of the sword he received as a greeting. Offspring of Hygelac, on Genthiau's barn later departed to visit his homestead. When Heardred was dead, let Beowulf rule them, govern the Geatmen, good was that folk king. Book 34, Beowulf Seeks the Dragon, Beowulf's Reminiscences. He planned requital for the folk leader's ruin in days thereafter, to Edgils the Wretched becoming an enemy. Other's son then went with a war troop o'er the wide-stretching currents with warriors and weapons. With woe journeys cold he after avenged him, the king's life he took. So he came off uninjured from all of his battles, perilous fights, offspring of Ecgtheow. From his deeds of daring till that day most momentous, when he fate-driven fared to fight with the dragon. With 11 companions the prince of the Geatmen went lowering with fury to look at the fire drake. Inquiring he'd found how the feud had arisen, hate to his heroes. The highly famed gem vessel was brought to his keeping through the hand of the informer, that in the throng was 13th of heroes, that caused the beginning of conflict so bitter. Captive and wretched, must sad-mooded thenceward point out the place. He passed then unwillingly to the spot where he knew of the notable cavern, the cave under earth, not far from the ocean, the anger of eddies, which inward was full of jewels and wires. A warden uncanny, warrior weaponed, wardered the treasure. Old under earth, no easy possession for any of earthfolk access to get to. Then the battle-brave atheling sat on the naze edge, while the gold friend of Geatmen gracious saluted his fireside companions. Woe was his spirit, death-boding, wavering. Weird very near him, who must seize the old hero, his soul treasure look for, dragging aloof his life from his body. Not flesh-hidden long was the folk leader's spirit. Beowulf spake, Ecgtheow's son, I survived in my youth days many a conflict, hours of onset, that all I remember. I was 7 winters old when the Jewel Prince took me, High Lord of Heroes, at the hands of my father. Hrethel the Hero King had me in keeping, gave me treasure and feasting, our kinship remembered. Not ever was I any less dear to him, knight in the boroughs, than the bairns of his household. Heribald and Hasten and Hygelac mine. To the eldest unjustly, by axe of a kinsman, was murder bed strewn, since him Hastian from Hornbow, his sheltering chieftain, shot with an arrow, erred in his aim, and injured his kinsman. One brother the other, with blood-sprinkled spear. 'Twas a feeless fight, finished in malice, sad to his spirit. The folk prince, however, had to part from existence with vengeance untaken. So to hoar-headed hero 'tis heavily crushing, to live to see his son as he rideth, young on the gallows. Then measures he chanteth a song of sorrow, when his son is hanging for the raven's delight, and aged and hoary he is unable to offer any assistance. Every morning his offspring's departure is constant recalled. He cares not to wait for the birth of an heir in his borough enclosures, since that one through death-pain the deeds hath experienced. He heart-grieved beholds in the house of his son the wine-building wasted, the wind-lodging places reaved of their roaring. The riders are sleeping, the knights in the grave. There's no sound of the harpwood, joy in the yards, as of yore were familiar.